Our guest is the new general manager of the Phillies, Preston Mattingly, who joins us from Florida. Preston, first, congratulations.
Thanks, Greg. I appreciate it.
Great to talk to you once again. So you're going to head out to the winter meetings next week in Dallas. We're taping this on the 5th of December. I guess a new winter meetings process for you, right? Tell us about your new role compared to your old one.
Yeah, obviously running the minor leagues the last 3 years is different shift in focus. Obviously, the way our structure with Dave being our president, I still and Sam still being involved as the GM. Still going to report up to them and work together very closely and shift my focus more to some things up in the Philly area, and then still assist our new farm director Luke Merton. So yeah, more of a shift towards the major league side, but always love my player development days too.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the guys in the minors, no particular order. But one of the guys that I did want to start with you was Justin Crawford, who had a great year. Obviously, he began here. He went to Reading. What stood out to me the most was that he actually played better in Reading than he did here, which is something that you usually don't see for a player at his age. Because when he got to Reading, he was probably one of the five youngest players in Double A, and I think that showed right off the bat that you have a real big time player here.
Yeah, Justin, I think one of the more impressive things from our side is how prepared he is. Obviously being a young kid, you mentioned him being 20 years old all of last year. He's one of the better guys we have in the organization in terms of preparing, whether it's his body, sleep, his routine. He's very buttoned up on what he needs to do. So, I obviously wasn't surprised that he's had the success that he's had to this point.
Aidan Miller joined Justin at the MLB Futures game. He got to the BlueClaws in the second week of June and was promoted, in September. Another young player who made gigantic strides this year. I'm sure you guys are thrilled. What did you see from him mostly this year?
Yeah, Aiden's first full year out of high school, coming back from honestly, he didn't play a ton his senior year because of the hamate injury. Aiden was great, from his time in low A. You guys probably saw a tough stretch for him early. I know he got
Yeah.
hot there late, but a guy that has proven he can play shortstop. Really good at bat taker. Has power. Yeah, he just to me he's like a chance to be the complete player.
I remember when Alec Boehm got drafted, there were people that asked if he could play third, and obviously he can. And when Aiden got drafted, there were people that said, "Hey, can he stick it short?" And he did nothing here. At least that would indicate that he can't. And I assume he's a full shortstop in your guys' eyes too.
Yeah, we're gonna play him predominantly a shortstop. Obviously, as he gets closer to the major leagues, as like needs may come up, so we may try and get him touches at other areas, but we look at him as a shortstop.
You had Andrew Painter, obviously, unfortunately, missed a couple of full seasons, but he pitched very well in the Arizona Fall League. He'll be a unique case going into next year just because of how much time he had missed. But what was your view of his work in the AFL, and how much can you glean from that? Those 20 innings plus whatever he did on the side in Florida to tell you, if he's fully back from where he was at the end of 2022.
Yeah, it was great to get him back into competition. That was kind of the goal all along. As people that go through the rehab process, it's 16 months, and guys are out of competition. So it was really important for us to expose him, getting back to the team environment, get him on a routine where he's pitching I think in the fall league it was every fifth or every sixth day. But just getting him back into that to me, like knock a little bit of rust off from the competition side. He performed very well. It didn't surprise us one bit. Honestly, when you never know, I think the command's usually the last thing that comes back for some of these guys that are coming back from Tommy John.
Hmm.
Andy was unique that from his first bullpen to his first live BP to the first game, like he was just a premium strike thrower. And when you combine that with like the athleticism he has, the size, the pure stuff, and the strike throwing ability, it's like he's got a chance to be pretty special.
A couple of weeks ago, late November before Thanksgiving, you guys added three players to the 40-man roster, all of whom played here: Mick Abel, Gene Cabrera, and Moises Chasse, who was only here for two starts, um, but did pitch for the BlueClaws briefly this year. When you guys go through that process, obviously to protect them from the Rule 5 draft, which will be next week at the winter meetings, what goes into those decisions, and how do you decide which players end up on the 40 man, because obviously there are other players that you could have put on if you wanted to, but space is obviously limited.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it. Like space is limited. Obviously, there's a lot of guys we would love to protect, but at the end of the day, with our focus being at the major league level and trying to win a championship, it's really tough to carry, 4 and 5 young kids who maybe aren't going to compete at the big league level right away. We feel really good about the 3 guys we added. Mick obviously had a little bit of a down year from a numbers standpoint in AAA, but for the third straight years, taking the ball wire to wire, 110 plus innings. I think we saw his stuff get back to what it's been in years past towards the end of the year, second half. So we were excited about that. Moises Chassé we got in the trade, who came over and was honestly sensational from the time he got over there, shifting to the full-time starter role, gave him routines, get him prepared to start every time through. His stuff has got a chance to be special fastball with 2 breaking balls and a developing changeup. And then you guys saw Gene Cabrera as well. Just strike thrower as the stuff continued. He's a slender build kid, but the stuff continued to trend up, and we really like the competitiveness and the compete there too.
Oh, he's a bulldog. You know, he's the only player that I think that I've seen here in the last number of years that would get. I don't mean this in a negative way. I mean this in a positive way, like upset when they would come out and get him. And he'd be like 103 pitches, and he'd be kind of like annoyed that Bull came out to get him, and Bull would be like, hey, you're at 103 pitches. You've done everything you possibly can today. Like, you're good. You did an amazing job. And he'd want to throw another 30. He was just that type of guy. And he
Yeah,
would never wear short sleeves. Like, he just had that bulldog mentality all the time. I'm
as you
sorry,
know,
he would never wear long sleeves. He would always wear short sleeves.
you've seen a bunch of big leaguers, like the ones who have stuff and are really competitive usually show up, and I think Gene fits that mold to a T.
Chase, not too many teams that are in the we're trying to win the World Series mode add a player of his ilk at the deadline. That's a kind of a coup, right?
Yeah, it was a unique situation. Like honestly, moving Gregory Soto, obviously a guy that was pitching, kind of the middle innings for us, and I think Baltimore saw him as a leverage piece for them, and we were able to line up on a deal to acquire 2 young, pitching prospects, and they get a guy they feel like they can throw at the back end of their bullpen.
Some of the other bigger names in the system were coming up, and I remember talking to you a year ago about Starlin Caba and Eduardo Tait. And talking to Edwin Soto when he came up here, and you guys just rave about them and their makeups and their abilities, and as they moved over to the States for the first full season this past summer, how did they progress? Obviously, they're 2 of the younger players that you have here in the States right now.
Yeah, I think, we were excited because it felt like kind of the first wave of our guys from Latin America coming over from the academy, and Starlin. It was kind of Starlin, Eduardo, Arun Escobar,
Right.
and a few other guys as well. But those were kind of the main 3 that we were really excited about, and they didn't disappoint. Eduardo, to start with Tait first, and just the hit power combo. We think he's got a chance to catch. He's been a really good receiver in his short time here, and I think he's got a chance to have an above average to plus arm. Some of the pop stuff we can improve, just to me, with cleaning up some of the transfer. I just think, like, to me, it's got a chance to be a special bat, and it's obviously hard to find behind the plate. So he
Yeah.
didn't disappoint with how young he was and playing at the levels he played at. And then Kaba, to me, like, came in with all the hype, and he kind of lived up to it, right? He's a guy that is as elite as a defender as you're going to find. Um, yeah, he controls the zone really well, doesn't chase at all, makes a ton of contact. I think with him, his next piece is just getting stronger and be able to impact the ball a little bit more. Because if he can do that, he's going to play shortstop for a long time. And then Escobar, honestly, was the last guy I mentioned, was a guy that probably wasn't on a lot of people's radar. He is now. He had a lower leg injury, kind of cut his season short, but another guy that can play second base and third base. He's really strong, really clean swing, controls the zone, and has power. So he's another exciting guy to throw in the mix with those 2, among other guys as well. But those are kind of the 3 to highlight. And our international scouting group does a great job of finding us guys like that. So it's exciting times.
One scout said to me, I'm not going to ask you about the comparison, but he compared Caba's glove to Ozzie Smith. So just forget, we're just talking about an elevated. This is not like a very good shortstop. This is better than that. Like
Yeah,
that type of glove. Yeah.
yeah. I always, hate comparing guys
Yeah.
to like Hall of Famers, but yeah, I think like Kaba, he's the one guy that's like I feel very confident saying like he's as good a defender as I've ever seen in the minor leagues and scouted. It's like it's a special defender, and he can do everything you want on the field defensively. So I don't
Um,
I don't want to put that on his back, but
of
he's
course.
got to
Yeah.
be special at shortstop.
Uh, where did you find Keaton Anthony? Because what a year, obviously, he had as a non-drafted free agent from 2 years ago. He hits three levels this past in 2024, or sorry, non-drafted free agent from 2023, and he goes through three levels in 2024 and ends up in Double A and wins a minor league Gold Glove, so he can hit and he can pick it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to throw in another guy too. You may have a question for me later, but Otto Kemp to me,
Yep.
like Keaton Anthony and Otto kind of fit in the same bucket, like both non-drafted players. We felt they were, guys who, for different reasons, like Otto had some injury stuff. Keaton had an off the field situation that was kind of out of his control. And both to me should have been drafted, right? And I think we got them for unique cases. Our scouts did a great job digging on the makeup. These guys have come in and been like top tier workers. As you mentioned, Keaton was an outfielder in college. We moved him to first base. He wins a Gold Glove there. And I think with him, like just the like this kid can just really hit. And like it's a unique approach. It's a lot of opposite field. He's got power to the full field. And I think honestly, he's got a chance to have more power than he even showed this year. I think as he learns to catch the ball out in front and get the ball in the air to the pull side a little bit more, he's going to hit for more power. And do what he did across the levels he was at was pretty unique. And then Otto was the same. He started in Clearwater because of an injury, but he went through Jersey and Reading and then to Lehigh at the very end of the year and was one of the better performers in all the minor leagues. And you got to see Otto. He's a really good
Great
defender
guy.
at third base. He's a gamer. He does a lot of things to help you win a ball game day in, day out. I think both those guys are very nice players.
And Otto had a great fall too in Arizona.
Yep.
So you mentioned, you want to see guys, kind of elevate the ball, drive the ball a little bit more. That kind of seems like a Henry Mendez kind of situation because obviously he can hit it. Hits the ball hard, hits for high average, takes a lot of walks. But he's going to play in the corner in the corner outfield spot. He had 3 homers this year. If you can get him to elevate the ball, what kind of potential does a guy like him have? And he was a trade acquisition at the end of 2023.
Yeah, honestly, like you
It
mentioned,
was, and he's young too.
yeah,
He was very young.
cornerback profile. I mean, you just hit on it. To me, it's not necessarily like for him, it's a little bit of his path. So we're working on cleaning up his path. He's pretty steep. So if we can help him there and elevate more balls, like you mentioned, he has power. He can run. Like he can do a lot of things in the field, especially offensively. So I think it's just to me like I feel like we chipped away a little bit this year. And to me, just can we keep gaining on the momentum we did last year? And hopefully you look up in a year or two and he's cut the ground ball rate by 10, 15%, and you got a guy that's elevating the ball more.
Because you don't have to cut it like 30%, right? Like 10%, if you hit 8% more fly balls, 2% more line drives, or that's going to add up into a lot of hits and enough home runs where it'll play.
Yeah, and it's a lot of extra base hits with how hard he hits it. So it's just, it's me. You nailed it. I don't think it's got to be. It's not like we're years away or like mountains away from changing this thing. It feels like we're pretty close to like. Hopefully, we can get him over the hump. And I think once it clicks with him, then to me, you could see him really take off.
Yeah, because Crawford was up there too in ground ball rate, but obviously with his speed, it plays it's a totally different situation because he can deal with that. Maybe you want it a little lower, but he can deal with a high one because of how fast he is.
Yeah, correct. I mean, Crawford's profile is a little bit different, but we saw Justin's hard hit rate go up and more line drives, and I think you see it when he hits the ball in the gap. Like he's fun to watch. It's a special type talent.
You guys had a lot of kind of under the radar um, pitchers that kind of came through here this year. Andrew Walling had a tremendous run, ended up in Reading, but then at the end of the year, you brought up like Luke Russo pitched very well. He was a late pick from the year before. Casey Stewart pitched very well. He was an acquisition from the year before, and there were a couple of other guys like that. Just in general, um, you guys seem to be, and there are other guys at higher levels that we've talked about over the previous years, but you guys seem to be very adept at finding kind of under the radar arms through the amateur scouting process and then developing them up where you take some, real shots and get a couple of these guys to the big leagues, and it makes a big difference for your organization.
Yeah, we talk about this all the time. I think it's an organizational it's an organizational chore, right? I mean, like
Yeah.
between amateur scouting, between our pitching development, between, they're just like it's like a our analytic group identifying guys. It's a group effort, and to me, like it takes a village to develop all players. But pitching to me feels like we haven't spent a ton of draft capital over the last couple of years. We've taken a lot of position players up high, and that pairing that with a lot of we haven't had as many picks as other clubs. I think we've done well to find guys later in the draft. And you mentioned some guys, Casey Stewart threw 100 plus innings. Yeah, Luke Russo, a lot of guys you could name. I mean, it's just that it's to me, it's like a little bit of our philosophy is like getting guys true starters, letting them pitch as starters, letting them go deep into games. And I think you saw all those guys throw 100 plus innings this year.
Yeah, and Russo will be, I think, a name to watch this year because he missed a lot of time. He had a lot of injuries in college too, so he's still very raw. Along those lines, though, Brian Kaplan had been the assistant pitching coach and the pitching development director, kind of a unique setup where he would oversee the pitching in the organization in concert with Travis Hergert from the big league club. He goes to the Diamondbacks to be their pitching coach, I assume, to install a similar system. And Mark Lowy goes up from one of your analysts to the big league club. Are you going to kind of keep the same organizational structure with Mark in place of Brian now?
No, I think we're going to shift some things around. Cap was very unique, and it was a unique role with him being director and in the big leagues. Obviously, happy for him. Like
Yeah.
he did a lot for us on the pitching side. Him to get to run his own program there in Arizona with a good organization. Happy for him. Yeah, we're going to change the structure. Mark Lowy will just be with the big league club, and Mark's doing this in the minor leagues too, so he knows
Mhm.
how our PD system works. We're going to restructure. We're kind of finalizing the names now. Hopefully, we should have that by the winter meetings. But it will be our new director will or directors will be solely focused in the minor leagues.
Gotcha. Who are some of the players that a Blue Claw fan should keep an eye on the position player side? We talked about Cabo, we talked about Tait. I know you have Devin Saltamon. I guess we could talk about him coming up from Clearwater into 2025.
Yeah, I think I think like from a who Jersey Shore fans should be looking for. To me, like you mentioned Saltaban, he's the first guy. He's very young. Last year in the Florida State League, very green too, like coming from Hawaii high school baseball, hadn't been exposed to some of the higher level events. Um, we think he's got a chance to be a five-tool type player, and obviously learning a new position at second base, coming from center field. That's one guy. You guys had, a little bit. You got to see the draft guys in Clearwater as they signed last year's, but a lot of those guys will probably start in Jersey next year. You never know how things will shake out. But Carson DiMartini, third baseman who can really defend, and he's shown he has real power. To me, he's like got a chance to play third base. Um, Outfields, John Spikerman and Carter Matheson, two guys we took in the third and fourth round, respectively. Two guys to look out for, and also like a Joel Dragoo, a guy we took. I think I can't remember the exact round on him, but a lot of the 2024 draft guys to me have a chance to start in Jersey Shore the way our organization is structured this year. So that'll be a shift in how we've done things in years past.
Is
And then
that a
another the last guy to mention who missed the full year last year is Alex McFarland.
right?
McFarland, obviously in Clearwater has a great arm and recovered from Tommy John, and we think he'll be ready to go coming this spring.
Is so the last couple of years, um, the Blue Claws have had, believe, one player from the previous year's draft class on opening day. Last year it was Troy Schreffler. He was the only one. And no, I'm sorry. 2 years ago it was Troy Schreffler. Last year it was Zach Arnold. They were the only ones from the year prior. But a lot of other teams had other guys. How much of this is just like an organizational philosophical shift? How much of it is, hey, we only have 165 players now and it's tougher? How much is it just the group of players that you have and sending the college guys up if it does work out that way?
It's probably a combination of everything you just mentioned, but I would say like we honestly we're building our organization from the ground up. And I mentioned all the players that started in the Latin in our academy in the DR, and they kind of their first wave was this year in at our complex. Go back to Justin Crawford's group that played in Clearwater. They were all in Jersey this year. You would hope that the next year they're in all in Reading. So I think we're trying to kind of year by year, kind of another level gets kind of filled with like our new groups draft guys and I since I've been here it's kind of been it felt like we've added a really talented players every year that kind of filled another level. I think in years past, AAA feels like it's kind of a league of its own,
Yeah.
honestly. But I mean, this year it feels like a lot of our homegrown players will be in AA. A lot of our draft guys from this year with the previous high school kids will be in Jersey. A lot of the high school kids from this year's draft, plus our Latin Academy players, will be in Clearwater. And as we bring new players over to the academy that plays our complex league, we've had to build the organization from the ground up, and we're really happy about that and excited about it. And we think our system's very underrated and have a lot of players that are going to contribute, at the big league level for us. And honestly, with how talented our big league roster is for other teams as well. So I
Yeah, I
think
mean,
it was just circumstance of building our organization from the ground up.
you traded three valuable pieces at the deadline in William Bergoya, Sam Aldegari, George Clausen. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah, I think it's one thing we're really proud of, and it kind of goes unnoticed at times. You mentioned Bergoya, who's a homegrown international player, Sam Aldegari, international player, and Clausen's a guy we take in the sixth round, and like they went out and had really good years, and other teams valued them. And I think like as we try and win World Series at the major league level, you always have to try and pick up pieces. And I was really happy for those three guys, and honestly for our system, like developing these type of players year in year out, it's like a something we're going to have to do. And you can even look back years prior, like the year prior, we traded Hao Yu Lee, who's now a borderline, top prospect with the
He had a
Tigers.
great year. I didn't realize how good a year he had. So
Yeah, and then the year prior to that, we traded Ben Brown and Logan O'Hoppe, two guys who have contributed at the big league level already. So it's like I think like we're building this thing from a ground up, and I think while also competing at the major league level, and we're going to have to move pieces to get us over the hump and try and win a World Series. So yeah, happy for all for our organization and for all those players as well.
do you take a lot of pride when like Aldegari and and Travis and all the other coaches in the system take a lot of pride when an Aldegari goes from double A in your system on July 28th or whatever, and then starting for the Angels on August 20, whatever it is as well. That's 1 month, and you guys did all the development work in that, right? That's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
it's like I said, it's a proud moment for our organization. You see the amount of work and time spent to help these players improve on a daily basis, on a yearly basis, off-season camps. I mean, it's just like it's development never stops. And I know how passionate all of our staff members are and our organization is on giving players the resources they need and developing them. So I think when you see guys go from, double A to the big leagues with double A with us, and then the big leagues with another club, it just shows like the quality of people and players we have, and obviously just thrilled for them.
In your 3 years running the minor league system, where would you say the organization has made the biggest strides from 2021 to now?
It's a good question. I think our DR Academy's taken big strides forward. Um, I think our pitching developments continue to improve. And I honestly, to me, like probably the biggest thing is our strength and conditioning. I think the resources that we have there and the amount of those resources we pour into off-season camps and getting really improving guys' bodies in a hurry. So I would probably say number one would be the our strength conditioning program.
I know they're young, but and they won't get here till much later into the year. But what can you tell us about Dante Nori and Griffin Burkholder, who were higher picks last year? Nori was the first round pick, high school outfielders.
Yeah, we kind of with the way we ran our draft this past year, we kind of split the first two picks and felt like we got two guys we really valued. I'll start with Dante. Like Dante is a guy that to me has a lot of really good skills that lead to winning. He's a really good defender. He's a really good quality base runner. He controls the zone. He makes a ton of contact, and we think there's more power in there than he's shown. So I think he has a chance to be a kind of a complete type player, like top of the order table setter type. And then Griffin Burkholder, honestly, is a little bit of a wild card. He had some injuries with us, but it's true five tool type guy. Every bit of a plus runner. Center field defense is got a chance to be above average to plus. I mean, yeah, like he's the aptitude's off the charts. Like he's very smart. He has power, and we think there's going to be a quality at bat taker in there to allow him to get to that power. So, I'd say very excited with both of those guys. They both have really big upside, and we're excited to get them out for their first full season next year.
Mavis Graves started 16 games for Clearwater last year, had a really good year. I know you shut him down at the end, but anybody who strikes at 117 guys in 84 innings is worth keeping an eye on. Presumably, he'll be here. What stood out about Mavis's 2024?
Yeah, the first thing I'll say of Mavis is like he's probably the guy I'm most proud of from last year. Coming from the complex and him kind of just coming into us as a kind of a middle of nowhere high school kid who was very green to everything. He completely transformed his body, built a good workload at the complex, and then just made huge strides from a pitchability last year. He got a little bit worn down towards the end, and you saw the stuff try and start to taper off a little bit. But obviously, you mentioned the strikeouts. He has five pitches. It's a sinker, a four-seamer, a cutter, a curveball, a changeup. He can do a lot of things with the ball. He's really competitive. He's just very young, and I think we've got a good workload under his belt now, so we should kind of take the gloves off per se and let him have a full year, similar to what you saw with like a Gene Cabrera and Sam Aldeguerri next year. So I think fans should be excited. He's extremely competitive. He's going to come after guys and attack them, and should be a fun guy to watch.
When do you guys decide how you deploy your staffs? Because I know some of it is just a numbers game. You know, the way the schedule works, you can pitch them on 6 days rest. You have a Tuesday guy, a Wednesday guy, Thursday guy, etc. Or some organizations will pitch a 5-man rotation where they would have 4 days rest or 5 days rest, depending on what part of the rotation they're on. Obviously, when you get to the big leagues, you're going to have to pitch in a 5-man rotation. How do you guys make those decisions? At what point do you make those decisions? Early in the year, during spring training, before that, whatever.
Yeah, I think we identify who our starters are early, and we bring them into to the complex here in January to build up responsibly. It's one of the things we're very passionate about is trying to keep these guys on the field and healthy and allow them to pitch the full season. So I think getting them there in January and getting them built up under our watch is really key for us. And then to me, like you said, we use the kind of the college starter program where they throw once a week, except in AAA. And we think that allows them, we're trying to build starting pitchers, and it allows them to pitch deeper into games, gets to higher pitch counts. It also allows them to build routines. And it's build routines in the weight room, build routines in the training room, and also work on things. Because I think these guys, and they're in A ball and they're 19 and 20 and 21 years old, like even up to before they get to the big leagues, the older guys, like they're not finished products. And you have to continue to work on things throughout the year. Like it's not just the off season is time for development. You can also develop in season. And so I think we kind of identify who our starters are early, and we develop them that way throughout the entire year, as you guys have seen.
They've had this new minor league baseball structure since 2021, but putting that year aside, because coming out of COVID and a lot of injuries, putting that aside, 22, 23, 24, looking at it, where do you think the biggest jump is from one level to the next? I know you said kind of AAA is its own little world now, but how big is the jump from low A to high A versus high A to double A, et cetera?
It's a really good question. Like we talk about this all the time. Honestly, like I'll just kind of walk through all the levels with you. Like the academy to the Florida Complex League or the Arizona League, whichever one it
Yep.
would be. It feels like a jump, but kind of a standard jump. I would say the jump from the Complex League to full season low A is a pretty big jump, but it's not a massive jump. I think the biggest one comes from low A to high A. And
Okay.
the reasoning I have behind that is a lot of times your players in low A are your high school kids, your kids from the academy, and maybe a few college players. Every team runs it different, but a few college players. But as you guys see there in Jersey Shore and High A lot of teams start their college players there. So I think if you're going from low A to high A, you're getting a pretty big jump in from you face kind of high school pitching slash lower level pitching to now high profile college arms. So that to me is a big jump from a guy who would be a sophomore in college at that time. And we've pushed our high school kids. So like that's to me the biggest jump. It doesn't feel like high A to double A is as big as a jump as it's been in the past.
Mhm.
I think the second other level is that to me the biggest jump is double A to triple A. And I think like the talent level has gotten better. It's a new baseball there. You get a lot of the older veteran guys where teams building depth for their major league roster. So I think the two biggest jumps are low A to high A and then double A to triple A. And then obviously the biggest of them all
Yeah, of
is
course.
triple A to the big leagues.
Just to follow up on that, this past year, um, in the first 9 games of the season, the BlueClaws faced 5 pitchers that were either making their first professional start or their second professional start. They had started the week before, and all 5 of them were high-level power conference college pitchers that were taken in the first whatever 3, 4, 5 rounds that were kind of just lying in wait through their first fall, and then unleashed at high A at the beginning of the year. And again, that's a guy that would be a senior in college at a big school, facing Crawford and Rincon or whatever, who would have been, as you said, freshman, sophomore, whatever. Just
Yeah, it's a massive jump. I actually was there opening day for the BlueClaws this past season, and I want to say we faced Aberdeen for our first home opener.
yes,
And I remember it was like Carter Jack, or I'm going to get his name wrong, Ballmeister from Florida State.
yeah, Jackson Baumeister, who I think got traded
Yeah, he did too. I think to
Tampa Bay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I remember seeing like 3 or 4 starters where it's like these are all high profile college starters that Baltimore had taken in the last couple of years. So I just think the level of pitchability and stuff from those guys versus what the high school kids have seen is just it's another level.
I casually just threw his name in there before as an example, but Brian Rincon unfortunately had some injuries, or one big injury this past year. I know you got him some time in the fall league. I assume you want to keep him at short. Like, how does, and you sent him to the fall league to kind of get some at bats and get some more seasoning. But how does he head into 2025?
Yeah, he's a guy who's still very high on. Honestly, he had a really tough year from an injury standpoint. It never felt like we got to see the actual Brian Rincon. So yeah,
No,
excited
because
about him next
he gets
year.
hurt. It doesn't get above 50 degrees, and then he hurts his hamstring, and then by the time he comes back, there's 2 weeks left in the season. It's just
Yeah,
unfortunate. Yeah.
yeah, it was a tough year for him, but obviously the makeup he has and the work ethic, we know he'll bounce back. And I'm glad we got him out back into competition in the Arizona Fall League to kind of, and with some warm weather, to knock some rust off and get him ready for 2025.
What player or players kind of surprised is the wrong word, but maybe kind of improved their stock in your eyes or the Phillies' eyes the most in 2024?
I mentioned we talked to a couple of the guys. I would probably say Otto Kemp, Keaton Anthony. Not that we always like these players,
Right,
right?
right, right.
But they kind of took big jumps. Gene Cabrera, Eberson Castellano. Yeah, I
Actually,
think
yeah, I should have you talk a little bit more about him. He was really good. He the nasty slider. Um, I know he missed a couple of weeks with a small thing, but had a great year. I'm sure he was in strong consideration for the 40 man, and you would have loved to have kept him if you had more spots. But and he really improved too from April to August.
yeah, he took a big jump this year. Honestly, it was all the credit goes to him and our pitching group. He completely transformed his body. Off season was huge for him. He really, worked his butt off and developed some the stuff a little bit. The command ticked up. He was able to I think close to double his workload from the years past, and maintain, like you said, a small injury here or there, but kind of start to finish took the ball. Yeah, excited about what he did this year, and I think he's got a bright future.
And he and Justin Crawford were the Owens Award winners. Crawford seemed like the obvious guy, and you had a few different candidates on the pitching side, but ended up with Aberson. So, yeah, I mean that was pretty much all I had for you. I appreciate a few minutes. What are you looking forward to most about next week in Dallas?
I think just getting to see a lot of people throughout the industry, and then to me, like kind of pushing forward, building our roster, and I think we use these times to go through some organizational meetings. We bring our pitching group out to Dallas to meet out there. So we use the time too to kind of before the holidays, everybody kind of goes their separate ways to get everybody together and kind of set the ground uh, set the groundwork for the 2025 season. So it's exciting times. Yeah, and also building our major league roster.
Sure. One other thing I did, we talked about this briefly last year. Going into 2024 was the first time you guys were going to be stuck at that 165 number. Did it kind of play out as you had expected, or was it tougher or easier to manage, that 165 across, 5 different teams that were playing at any given time, complex all the way through AAA?
I guess now that I'm not running the system on a day-to-day basis, I'll say it wasn't that big of a deal, and it kind of worked out as we thought. Honestly, I think like the tricky part becomes with the 165 is when guys are banged up, but they're not 60-day ILs, so you don't get the extra roster spot. That's when it becomes a little bit tricky, but yeah, I honestly think it's not that big of an issue, and I think that the biggest gripe from people I think is the pitching side, but I think if we want guys to throw multiple innings and guys to start, it helps like lessen the workload for other pitchers. You got to develop them that way. And that's what
You
we
guys,
try to do this offseason.
you guys are among the most, if not the most, maybe aggressive organization with your young pitchers. I would say, right? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, we try and push our guys.
Which is good, and it works out. So I know, Preston, thank you. I know great things are ahead for you for the Phillies, and we look forward to seeing how the chips fall. And if anything happened in the time between we recorded this and when you hear it, then we apologize. We taped it on the 5th. Preston, thanks so much. Have a great holiday as well.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Same to you.